Nehemiah rebuilds the walls. Before we begin, I want to wish all of you a 2025 filled with blessings. May this new year be full of health, faith, and happiness, and may each challenge that arises be overcome with courage and determination, just as Nehemiah did in his journey of rebuilding. May we face the year with the same confidence in God and the certainty that, with faith and teamwork, we can achieve great feats. The story of Nehemiah is a powerful example of faith, leadership, and action in the face of the greatest challenges. As the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes in Persia, Nehemiah held a position of great trust, but when he received the sad news that Jerusalem was in ruins, he rose with courage and determination to restore the city's walls. He not only prayed and fasted, seeking God's guidance, but also faced enemies and obstacles with wisdom and resolve. His story teaches us that, with faith in God, we can overcome any adversity and accomplish great feats united in purpose and divine trust. Now, if you are inspired by this story of faith and perseverance, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to not miss the next videos. Let's go together in 2025 with much hope and learning. The story of Nehemiah is one of the most powerful and touching narratives in the Bible, not only because of its depth of faith, but also because of its practical action and determination in the face of enormous challenges. Nehemiah was not a military leader nor a famous prophet, but rather a simple cupbearer to King Artaxerxes, serving in the Persian Empire, an apparently humble position, but one of great importance and trust. As a cupbearer, he not only served the king with food and drinks, but was also responsible for protecting the monarch from any attempt of poisoning or conspiracy, which demonstrated mutual trust and a spotless character. His proximity to the king also indicated that Nehemiah already possessed remarkable integrity, as his role required loyalty, discernment, and above all, an impeccable life. Although he held an influential position in the Persian palace, Nehemiah never forgot his roots. He was Jewish, and like all the Israelites, he felt the pain of Jerusalem's destruction and the fall of his homeland. Despite the wealth and stability offered by the Persian court, the suffering and affliction of his people were always present in his heart. When he received the news about the condition of Jerusalem, the city was in ruins, its walls broken, and its gates burned, leaving its inhabitants vulnerable, Nehemiah was deeply shaken. That news broke his heart, for Jerusalem was not just a city. It was God's holy city, the place where the temple had been built, the center of worship and divine promise. The destruction of the city meant more than a physical loss. It was a reflection of Israel's spiritual and social weakness. Nehemiah's reaction to this news was full of faith, but also of action. He did not just lament the situation of Jerusalem, but turned to God in prayer and fasting, acknowledging not only the physical destruction of the city, but also the spiritual failure of the people. Nehemiah prayed deeply, confessing the sins of Israel and asking for forgiveness, not only for individual failures, but for the collective failure of the people before God. He understood that, without divine intervention, there would be no true restoration, and it was this realization that led him to a sincere prayer of repentance and plea for mercy. Nehemiah knew that true rebuilding could not be achieved by human effort alone, but would depend on God's grace and intervention. His prayer included a clear and bold request that God would use him to bring a solution to Jerusalem's problem. This moment teaches us the importance of seeking divine guidance and assistance in all our endeavors, especially when faced with great and complex challenges. Nehemiah did not rush. He bowed before God, seeking his direction before taking any action. After praying fervently 4 days, Nehemiah had the courage to rise and take the next step. King Artaxerxes, noticing the sadness on his cupbearer's face, asked him about the reason for his distress. Even though he knew his request might be seen as disloyalty to the king, Nehemiah did not hesitate to expose the pain he felt for the city of his ancestors. Then, with great courage, he asked permission to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the city's walls. Surprisingly, the king, moved by Nehemiah's sincerity and passion, not only granted him permission, but also offered letters of protection and the necessary resources for him to carry out his mission. This act by the king shows how God can move the hearts even of the most powerful rulers to fulfill his divine purpose. Nehemiah found himself not only with the king's permission, but also with the material means and security guarantees to do what God had asked him. Nehemiah's journey to Jerusalem was not just a physical journey, but also a spiritual and emotional one. Upon arrival, he did not act hastily, but took the necessary time to assess the situation. Instead of immediately announcing his intentions to the people, Nehemiah conducted a quiet inspection of the city's walls. He walked through the ruins at night, alone, to observe the extent of the destruction without the knowledge of enemies or others. This attitude of Nehemiah demonstrates the need for reflection and careful planning before embarking on any great project. He knew that more than just will and faith were required. Discernment was needed to understand what needed to be done and how. Nehemiah was much more than a leader who saw the need to act. He was a wise leader who understood the importance of acting with wisdom. He knew that before beginning any reconstruction, it would be necessary to study the terrain, understand the magnitude of the work, and draw up a clear and realistic plan. Thus, he walked through the ruins, reflecting on the steps to be taken. This moment illustrates the principle that before we take action in our own lives, we need to evaluate what needs to be restored, reflect on the necessary steps, and seek God's guidance. Just as Nehemiah inspected the walls, we must inspect our own lives, identify areas that need repair, and seek wisdom for the process of healing and restoration. After this careful evaluation, Nehemiah gathered the people of Jerusalem, but he did not just announce the monumental task ahead. He inspired, encouraged, and motivated them. He shared his vision with the people, reminding them that rebuilding the walls was not just about physically protecting the city, but about restoring God's honor and protection for the people. Nehemiah exhorted each family to take responsibility for a section of the wall and worked tirelessly to keep everyone focused and united. He knew the task was difficult, but he believed that with God's help, the work would be completed. This approach demonstrates the importance of unity and teamwork. Nehemiah did not seek to do everything himself. He called the people to get involved collectively and share the task. Each person had a part in the work, and everyone contributed with determination. However, Nehemiah's work was not without opposition. As the work progressed, enemies of the project began to appear. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, leaders of neighboring nations, were angered by the progress of the rebuilding and tried in various ways to stop the work. They mocked, threatened, and attempted to sow discord among the workers. However, Nehemiah stood firm in his faith and trust in God. Instead of being intimidated by the threats, he organized the protection of the workers. He set up watchmen to guard while others continued the rebuilding and provided weapons so the people would be ready to defend themselves if necessary. Nehemiah knew that, to complete the work, not only faith but also practical action would be needed. He did not rely solely on prayer, but also on vigilance and preparation, balancing both to ensure the work was completed safely. The opposition did not stop there. The enemies tried to intimidate Nehemiah more forcefully, spreading lies, attempting to seduce him with peace proposals, and even hiring false prophets to generate fear. But Nehemiah remained firm, refusing to take his eyes off the purpose God had given him. He knew that the restoration of Jerusalem was a divine mission and that, with God by his side, he would fear nothing. Nehemiah did not give in to the temptations to divert his focus, and his determination to continue despite the threats is an example of how we should persevere in our own challenges. After 52 days of hard work and constant resistance, the walls of Jerusalem were finally rebuilt. This was a milestone not only for the people of Israel, but also for the faith of all those involved. When the enemies of Jerusalem saw the completion of the work, they were frightened, for they recognized that the work had not been accomplished by human skill, but by the mighty hand of God. The restoration of the walls of Jerusalem was not only a physical victory. It was a spiritual victory, restoring God's honor before the nations and renewing the hope and faith of the people. Nehemiah not only rebuilt the city's walls, he helped restore the dignity and faith of the people of Israel, reminding them that with God, the greatest adversities can be overcome. The story of Nehemiah is a profound lesson for all of us. It teaches us that with faith, courage, perseverance, and teamwork, we can overcome any obstacle and accomplish great feats. It also reminds us that when we face our own challenges and ruins in our lives, we must seek God's guidance, plan wisely, act in faith, and never give up. For with God, all things are possible. The story of Nehemiah is a testimony of divine restoration, both physical and spiritual, and an invitation for us to, like him, face our own challenges with courage, focus, and the certainty that God is with us every step of the way. Thus, the story of Nehemiah shows us that, with faith, courage, and wisdom, we can turn even the greatest adversities into opportunities for growth and restoration. May we follow his example, facing our challenges with determination and trusting in God to guide us at every step. If this message touched your heart, share in the comments what inspired you most. And, of course, if you haven't done so yet, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to stay updated on more videos like this. Also, share with friends and family so more people can be blessed. Let's go together in faith and hope for a 2025 full of great achievements. See you next time.